Now let's do the discussions. You all would know by now that the Black Stars representing Ghana in the World Cup, we're talking about Qatar 2020, will be playing their match against South Korea. It's going to be live here on TV3. And then also when you go to the sports section or tab of 3news.com, you get all the relevant updates up to that. As a result of that, we'll make sure that we make room or time for you to get all the doses of sports or in relation to football and from the camp of the Black Stars in Qatar, as we have Aman, Thierry Nyan, as well as the rest of the team, including Juliet. And we'll have some great time. And so we'll be cutting short New Day content to make sure that we dwell on the Black Stars. Every time that we have to be talking about socio-economic issues, politics, etc. Even though many of you will know that it's been occupying your mind since the budget was read. Many of you will think that as the budget was read on Thursday, all of us would have been resting. But a lot has been happening. I have in the studio for us, I have the big issues. Dennis Miracles Abuaji. He is a big man at the presidency. He is in charge as a staffer for local government and decentralization. Also a former MCE for Ekwapim North. Great man, very smallish, but very big in vocals. And he promises me today he's going to handle me softly.
Presidential height.
Presidential height.
Thank you.
And, well, legal practitioner, member of the NDC's legal team, very much instrumental in the MP for Jomoro, winning that case at the High Court in 2nd D. And so it means that all the bullets that were thrown at the Member of Parliament was repelled. And among many other legal practitioners and advisors, he led the team at DG. Tamaklo. He has a first Christian name as Edwin. Thank you for joining me, sir.
Roland, good morning.
Yeah,
good
great.
morning to my brother, Miracle. We thank God that we are here. And also to wish the Black Stars the very best today. I'm very confident that the painful defeat to Portugal will recover psychologically, mentally, so that we'll be able to win, to bring excitement. In the midst of economic crisis, we want football to, as it were, assuage the pain and the hardship a little bit. So it's my prayer that today we will do the best for this nation. We are behind them.
Well, certainly. And Miracles, you too, any wishes for the Black Stars?
Yes, I mean, Roland, you know, was it yesterday or 3 days ago? And I was discussing how timely this World Cup is.
Yes.
The timing.
Especially within all the difficulties we're facing.
I am telling you.
The budget
timing.
also being read.
Yeah, the timing. I think it brings some form of respite to all of us as global citizens. You know, considering all the global economic turmoil that we are experiencing now. People now have some, should we say, a break. You know, in between the difficult periods. I am really counting on the Black Stars to continue to let us enjoy this breathing space. And that would largely be based on how far they go. The more they win, the longer they stay in the tournament, the better for all of us.
All of us, yeah.
You know, so we are really wishing them the best. I seem to be quite confident that we'll go through. You know, the Black Stars, as we know, usually the first matches have always been like that. We enjoy the mathematics, you know, even the players, the coaches, the fans, you know, the adrenaline, where whilst the game is ongoing, we are checking on other score lines and checking how it's going. But eventually, I think we'll sail through. I think we'll beat South Korea today and probably have a very long, you know, winding match against Uruguay, and then we'll sail through. I'm quite confident. It's good for us. It's good for our hearts, our BP, and everything. We are in very difficult times, Roland.
Yes, we are.
Very difficult.
It's good. I think you are one of the few who concedes that who speaks for government and
very
concedes that we're in difficult times.
No, we are in very difficult times.
I think that is because you're a former MC, so you seem to associate more with people at the
I think everybody in this world now, I mean, and in this country, both opposition and government, everybody acknowledges this. I am yet to come across anybody, even in government, that would say that we are not in difficult time. But I think football can at least help us usher us into the Christmas season in a more relaxed environment.
Right.
Hopefully, by the time we turn around into 2025, things would have gotten better. I am quite optimistic.
Right. It's not often we see you preaching, so it's a good thing as well. Yesterday, I went to one of the shopping centers, and then when I saw the receipts that I had after my purchase, I'll show it to you. So it just, again, raised my consciousness. And this is what we have. Get Fund 2.5, NHIL 2.5, COVID 1%, and then we have VAT also in there 2.5. And when I saw the VAT, then I knew that the appropriation hasn't been passed for the 2023 budget. And Dennis, it means that we've crossed a threshold of over 20%. But when we do the communication, we say only VAT. So the ordinary Ghanaian only seems to think that, oh, it's only 2.5 added to VAT, so we have 15% payment. But on the corridors of government, is there realization that this will mean that the same number of people who seem to be within the tax bracket will always be taxed and so are overtaxed?
Well, I haven't said good morning to LG yet. Good morning, and then good morning to my people of Ekiapimot. I think that when it comes to issues of taxation, it's not something that anybody wants to hear. For everybody, including the people who even print the money, they would want to pay less taxes at all times. I won't be the one that would come and sit on TV and try to justify taxes and make it look as if, it is okay and all of that. It's not. The wishes would be that in all of these, we'll probably be doing 5% or 6%, but I doubt if it's like that anywhere in the world, especially looking at where we want to aspire to as a people. Obviously, we're all trying to reset our economy in all grounds, and raising the needed revenue for it is one of the things. I mean, Roland, we have a country where how much? About 60% to 70% of our revenue goes into paying tax salaries. So basically all this money that you are mentioning is going back to us as Ghanaians. So a lot of the people, the same people that you raise, are being overtaxed. These same monies are being raised, to come and pay them. And then after we are done using about 60 to 70%, we use the rest to pay interest on loans. And then we have a very small percentage of it that we have left to be able to now really, advance the country and develop in terms of providing the needed infrastructure and all of that. So we have genuine, concerns in there. I think that if you look closely at what government is trying to do, eventually we should be able to, maybe in the next year or two, be able to see a reduction of some of these.
Is that what you're told? In a year or two, we'll see a reduction.
I think. But we've seen it before. We've seen government remove taxes before. It's not like it's something that has never happened before. I mean, the NDC has removed taxes. The MPP, when we came to office, removed close to about 17 taxes or other things. I don't think that it's quite pleasant when you purchase something with your income and then you see so much taxes and all of that. But the question is, what are the options? What are the alternatives in order to break in the needed revenue? We are not there yet in terms of getting everybody to contribute. And there's a reason why we are paying so much. The reason is that we have a country where very few people, as you mentioned, are actually paying to take care of all of us. And the economists will tell you, your number will determine how much you need to be able to take care of yourself. So here we are, let's say we have 30 million people, 16 regions, and we hear just 2 regions, not even regions, so 2 cities, Kumasi and Accra, are actually contributing, almost everything that we need to be able to take care of ourselves. And yet all of us are consuming. So it's like the 3 of us here needing 3 cups of rice to be able to have a very fine breakfast. And yet Roland is only one.
Dennis, what happened to that refrain that we are going to broaden the tax base and so ultimately broaden the tax?
Roland, it takes a while. Like I'm saying, I want to be very careful in the choice of my words, especially when I'm discussing taxes. It takes a while. I mean, how many people are even holding accounts in this country? And if you look at what this government has been doing since 2017, the objective has been to find ways to be able to, first of all, identify the citizens. And that's what we are doing through the digitalization and then the digitization approach. Eventually, that's what I am very optimistic. When this digitization approach is all full, you know, where now your ID card, your national identification card is connected to your pensions, it's connected to your bank account, it's connected to your business registration number, then it will be difficult for people to hide. You know, there are people who have genuine registered businesses and yet are paying very less taxes. Recently, what happened with GRA's task force or whatever they had in town? I mean, big multinational supermarkets like
were evading tax.
ShopRite and all.
It's because they were under-reporting.
Yes, and the issue is not that you haven't paid. You and I have paid. So the receipt you have here, you have paid this 8 cities
to
or 9
the
cities,
entity.
and yet they don't pay to GRA. These are all gaps and leakages that we have. But these things can be fixed when they are automated, they are digitized, less human intervention. Everybody has a dashboard that we can see what is going on and all of that. And it takes a while. We can see improvement in how we're trying to bring a lot of people into the tax bracket. I mean, e-levy, obviously, undoubtedly, remains one of the ways that we can rope in a lot of people. We can discuss the rates. We can discuss the percentages, no doubt about that. But we cannot run away from the fact that it is one of the ways that all of us, I mean, the Mason is paid by Eduji via mobile money, and he pays nothing, no taxes. And yet Eduji has paid taxes on his income, and he's paying him for a service, and the guy is not paying taxes. And the same Eduji, when he's transferring the money, he's paying again a levy on his money. And then he goes to the Mason, and the Mason doesn't want to pay anything. So now that we're trying to bring things like the e-levy, digitize a lot of our systems, you know, this property rating, I've been following a lot.
Yeah, since last year, we decided that we wanted to go on a drive.
So. Yeah, I've been following up, and I realized that oh wow. So apparently now we can now tell the total number of properties that we actually have and the GPS coordinated their locations and where we are. So, and that is why government has now moved in strongly into the property waste collection. And listen, from what we have and the sort of system we have in place now and the digitized, you know, spatial system that we have now, we'll be able to rake in more from property rates. Very few people can now run away from the payment of property rate. How do we now begin to connect people who evade the payment of property rate based on their ID cards and all of these things too? Maybe their income they are earning somewhere or their bank account or whatever you to get everybody paying. The point is this: we are paying a lot of taxes, but we need those taxes to be able to take care of us as a people. We cannot run away from it. Let's say we take off 12% of VAT. Okay, what is going to happen is that the rippling effect is that more teachers should be laid off, more nurses should be laid off. That will be the rippling effect, because it is this money that almost about 60 or 70% of it is going into paying the salaries of these people.
And the rest for our interest payments.
And our interest payments and all that. And if more people are going to be laid off from this space, what it means also is that more children are going to be dropping out, more people are going to be dying in our hospitals and all of that. We are in very difficult times, extremely difficult times. It's not a pleasant environment right now. But I think that what we need to do as a people at this point is for all of us to rally behind, you know, government and get out of this situation. And then eventually, when we free ourselves, we can begin to discuss which areas we can cut now, which areas we can improve upon, because we've done it before and make progress.
And according to the president, from his last address before the budget, that will be up to 2028 when we'll all be free. But Eduji, what happened to the refrain while government was in opposition from taxation to production? Because the assumption is that the issue about getting all people on board and houses being numbered started prior to 2017. And so we're thinking that by the last 6 years, we should have consolidated all these. And even the Masons should have been taxed adequately.
Yes, so Roland, once again, good morning. I think that with the benefit of hindsight, Mr. Akufo-Addo should be apologizing to the families of Ahunu Honga and the rest, the people who died in the needless Kumipreku demonstration when VAT was first introduced.
Why is that?
With the benefit of hindsight, Akufo-Addo now begins to appreciate the visionary leadership by Jerry Rawlings in introducing value-added taxation then. But for value-added taxation, this country would have collapsed. When Akufo-Addo became president, for last year alone, value-added taxation gave his administration close to 20 billion Ghana cedis just from value-added tax. And so today, if budgets read under Mr. Akufo-Addo are introducing additional layers of value-added taxation, it is only fair that he looks back and apologizes to the families of those who died in that needless Kumipreku demonstration. You see, like you made a point. When you brag in opposition, when you talk big, but with very little ideas, time is the only thing that will expose you. You recall the popular refrain by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and the MPP that they are going to move the economy, one, from the Goggisberg economy to the economies of, South Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, and what have you, and Singapore. You also recall the claim that they were going to move the economy from taxation to production. Akufo-Addo having become president, obviously it was deceptive to get the mandate of the people, to procure the mandate of the people through deception. Having gotten power, he had introduced different forms of taxes, and he is going to introduce more until he leaves office in 2024. There's no end in sight because, as we speak, he had basically run the economy aground. Effectively today, we are dealing with VAT of 21%. NHIS is doing 2.25%, Get Fund is doing 2.5%, COVID is doing 1%, that's COVID recovery. These are the people who told us in 2020 that they were giving us free water, free electricity. Immediately they got their mandate renewed. They introduced COVID tax. And they claimed that when we were taking the free water, free electricity, where did we think that the money was going to come from? So it was not free after all. Then already we have a VAT of 12.5%. If you add the additional 2.5%, effectively, we are doing 21% value-added taxation. What was the VAT rate that the J. Rawlings administration brought? For which reason Akufo-Addo led the Kumipreku demonstration? So let's, first of all, and sometimes, if Akufo-Addo would demonstrate candor, he should apologize to the people of this country for the deception. But that's just on the other side. You see, why are we where we are today? And I've always asked this question. Look, from 2009 to 2016, when the NDC left office, the envelope of financial resources available to the Mills Mahama Misata administration was 248 billion Ghana cedis.
What's your point?
The point I'm making is that today, in the space of almost 7 years, the volume of financial resources available to the Bawumia Akufo-Addo administration is 520 billion Ghana cedis, the most resourced administration since 1992. But what do they have to show for? Economic misery, economic hardship, pervasive depreciation of the cedi, inflation rate never seen before. That is their scorecard.
Mr. Ntujitamakula, are you oblivious of the fact that since the government came in 2017, we've had a lot of welfare packages like free SHS, one district, one factory, one constituency?
In the mid-year budget statement, the finance minister presented the returns. And from the budget statement, of all the social intervention programs done by the Akufo-Addo administration, it has cost us 42 billion Ghana cedis. So let's even take, for the sake of argument, we are taking 42 billion, okay, out of the 520 billion financial resources available to this administration. What do you have left? This is the most wasteful administration that we have ever seen. Do you know that last year, the interest payment and amortization alone, that is, the amount we paid in servicing our principal and interest, is more than the money spent by the Akufo-Addo administration on all the social intervention program from 2017. I recall vividly, in one of the lectures by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia at the Central University, one of the things that he said is that the fact that the John Mahama administration, by ending of the, December 2016, expended 11 billion Ghana cedis on interest payment was unheard of. In fact, at the time when he made that lecture, we were doing 9 billion Ghana cedis on our interest payment and amortization. Bawumia said that was a mark of incompetence. Today, as we speak, from the 2023 budget, this government is going to spend 52 billion Ghana cedis on interest payment and amortization. Not 9 billion, not 11 billion, but 53 billion in servicing our debts. That is where the money is going to. But you see, the regrettable situation is that our finance minister, a direct cousin of Mr. Akufo-Addo, and whenever we made this point, they have not been able to challenge us in the sense that our finance minister, anytime he borrows for this republic, he benefits directly from it. We have never seen that kind of arrangement where a person puts his private interest ahead that of the republic.
But you don't know that he resigned from entity Data Bank, which
the,
of course
the truth of the matter is that he only resigned as director, but he remains shareholder, beneficial owner, ultimate beneficiary of the proceeds that come through. And you know what is even more worrying is the fact that Ken Ofori-Atta, when he left Data Bank, decided to incorporate a company offshore and offloaded his shares to this offshore company. So finance minister, it may well be, it's not even keeping the money that he's made from this economy within the economy. He's keeping it offshore. What will be his moral authority to encourage you and I to pay more taxes when he is the beneficiary of tax haven? These are the moral questions. I have always maintained that if Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, having helped Akufo-Addo to become president, decided to stay in private business and make money doing government business, I don't have a problem. But the moment you become a public officer and you are the decision maker and you put your private interest above all, and I make this point fortified by the fact that if you look at the Public Financial Management Regulations 2019, Regulation 2387, the rule is that it's the finance minister who decides how much we borrow through our bond issuance. And that explains the reason why from 2017 to date, Ken Ofori-Atta has about $13 billion worth of bond receipts. It has never happened. In 8 years, the Mills Mahama administration, the overall bond, Eurobond that we contracted was $3.5 billion. Just in the space of 7 years. Akufo-Addo's finance minister, the cousin, they have borrowed from the Eurobond market alone $11 billion. I mean, so when you do that, if you take salaries, if you take statutory payments, and you come to interest payment and amortization, all your money from your revenue is gone. Look at this. In 2022, as we speak, so far, do you know that we have raised, in terms of our total revenue, we have so far raised 64 billion Ghana cedis. But do you know how much government has spent so far? 105 billion. So your total revenue is 64 billion, and it's in the budget statement. Now, when you pick how much this government has spent, you don't have money, but you spent in excess of how much you have. So we need to go and borrow.
Yeah.
Roland, we have a situation where we need to call this administration to order. Look, Akufo-Addo is basically behaving like a raging bull in a China shop.
It cannot be possible when the budget is always approved by Parliament. And Parliament is a composition
hold on.
of both the minority and the majority.
You see, first of all, the budget...
It's under the
no, first of all, the budget is the economic program of the government. Mm-hmm. It's an executive propelled thing.
So your point
and that is why you notice that there is no statutory or constitutional requirement that a special person to read the budget. In fact, my brother Miracle can read the 2024 budget statement because it is the president's own. So he can delegate anybody to do the reading for him. The fact of its approval by Parliament or not does not take away the fact that it is the government policy program. And that is why you notice that once the budget statement is read, government takes ownership. Oh, we have done this. We have constructed this road. How come that the NDC MP or NDP MP will not go?
By implicit, it has to be owned by the president.
It is his own.
Okay.
No other person.
Dennis, I think from the conversation we're all having, and the reason why we decided to dwell on the resultant effect of having more taxes on already taxed people or category of workers is the fact that we need to raise more revenue. But how do we explain that in making the effort and saying we're having cost-cutting measures, we don't say that we're downsizing the size of ministries, reducing the number of presidential staffers, or staffers who are on Article 71, or reducing some perks of the legislature, etc. And to the point that now we have to, if you look at the deficits, spend in excess of 61 billion. And for where and how we're going to get that money, even though we don't have good, so to speak, impression in the market, it is going to be difficult for us to raise that 61 billion.
Roland, I think that right now, where we are, not just for Ghana, but in the entire world, for all countries, all citizens have a choice. And I mean, when I hear Ediju speak, I am tempted to respond accordingly, but I am hesitant to do so.
Okay.
I mean, there are some citizens who are optimistic and have taken the position of standing behind their country and behind the government in resetting this economy and recalibrating. And
which category of citizens would that be?
And recalibrating this economy to put us on the path of growth, just as all other countries are doing. I mean, if you go to the UK, they have a more terrible situation than we do.
Are you serious?
Yes, I am. Okay, that is why in the last 6 months, they've had to change prime ministers like 3 times.
No, we haven't changed our finance.
No, so you're asking me if I'm sure. I've just given you an indicator.
All right.
Okay, so they have a much more terrible situation than we have. Go to Germany. Okay, go to Turkey. The inflation is hovering around 90%. Okay, I'm not using it as a justification, but I'm only trying to let you know that the
but we decide not to change our finance minister. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. The environment and the conditions and the issues in every country is different. UK have changed it 3 times. Has it changed anything? Nothing. They've changed their prime ministers 3 times in 6 months.
It sends signals to the market.
But didn't change anything. I'm just giving you an indication that if that alone could fix the economy, they would be flying by now. Okay. Now that's why I'm trying to refrain from it. So there are some citizens who are very optimistic.
And I'm asking which category of those citizens are there?
There are several citizens.
Have you been hearing from? Have you been? No, don't hit up.
No, I'm saying that.
We're having a very civil conversation. So let's not go to that.
I am saying that if you ask me that which category, are you saying that there is nobody in this country that is optimistic, that everybody is pessimistic? It cannot be. It cannot be. So yes, there are indeed people in this country who are very optimistic.
No, you are saying. Then I'm asking who.
But there are. But you are saying there are not. So who?
I'm not saying there. I said who. I'm not saying that they are not.
I am one.
Okay.
And there are several others.
But you are in government. You are a beneficiary of the public purse.
Am I not a citizen?
You are a citizen.
Exactly. So what's your point? And just like I am, there are teachers, there are nurses, there are policemen. Okay, there are people in public service, civil servants, local government service people who work to run this government. And they see the issues and they understand the issues. And they are very, very optimistic that they need to put their shoulders together to support to get the state out of this quagmire. Okay? And there are other categories of citizens who want to take political advantage of it. I don't know which side you are on, but that's your choice.
I'm asking questions.
No, but that's your choice.
Do I have to belong to a side?
Yes, you are a citizen. You must be on a side. Okay. You must either belong to the group of people that are optimistic that these states need to get out of the conditions that we find ourselves, and that we are not in isolation, okay? And that just as our inflation is hovering around 40%, if you go to countries that we partner and trade with, okay, like the UKs, the Turkeys and all, their inflations are also flying. How do we, as a country, in this mess, this chaotic economic mess, okay, get out of this situation? So there are some of us and several others. Don't assume that everybody on the streets today is pessimistic. Don't assume that every Ghanaian sitting in the trotro today, in spite of the challenges, is fighting for a regime change. People like Eduji, that is what they are fighting for. Otherwise, he should be the last person sitting on TV speaking of waste. Because even in the midst of our challenges, difficult moments, and all the waste he speaks about, no electricity is offered, so industries are running. People are not being laid off because operational cost is high for industry captains. As a
but your budget just told us.
Please, let me.
Your budget just told us that.
Let me make a point. People are not dying on the hospital beds because there is no electricity for operations to be done. The poor man and the poor woman's child who is in college is being supported by the same government that is wasting money through allowances. 1.5 billion, over 1.5 billion children, including the very impoverished citizens of this country, whose kids would have remained at home in spite of the waste, have their kids being paid for by the state. Unprecedentedly, no government within a period of 4 or 5 years have been able to tar the number of kilometers of roads that we have tied. Over 3,600 kilometers of road that we have tied in the midst of the waste. Okay, you came, you picked our debts from 9 billion to almost about 122 billion. You can calculate the percentage for yourself. We, admittedly, have moved from 123 billion to 400 billion or whatever, but we have things to show for. We have private sector that we have supported to generate at least 126 factories that are operational and others that are being built. We have people who have been supported in private sector to ensure that their businesses thrive. We are spending about $1 billion every year to keep energy on so that TV3 doesn't have to go and buy fuel to power their plants, because if they do, their operational costs will go up and they will have to lay off staff and people, Ghanaian citizens, will go home hungry. So we shouldn't kid ourselves. Listen, in the last 2 weeks, I have been to several districts in this country. Was it Friday? I was in the north with the vice president to launch the $150 million Soko project for the 48th district. They have genuine challenges. They have genuine local economic challenges that this government, in the midst of the waste that you refer to, is fixing for them. Roland, $150 million that is being sent to the north for 48 districts. This money is being transferred to their account. It's a loan. It is part of the loan. But this government would be glad to borrow $150 million to the 48 districts in the north for the development of this district so that they can make progress. Then, to borrow over 100 billion like you did and still put this country into darkness and still lay off children who are in school and are being supported by allowances and still leave thousands and millions of Ghanaians. Under your government, you were leaving 135,000 children out of the junior high school, staying on the streets every year, simply for 2 reasons. 1, their parents could not afford, and 2, there was not enough infrastructure for these children to go and sit in the class. We came, we borrowed $1 billion for the GET fund, and this infrastructure has been provided. That is why when I started this conversation, I tried as much as possible not to go on that tandem.
Please drink water, you're heating up.
Let it be stated.
I wrap up so that I can ask the question.
Let it be stated on this platform today, for all of us to know that we should not assume that every single Ghanaian citizen on the streets is throwing the way of the Eduji and all those who feel that they should be on the side of regime change. There are genuine patriotic Ghanaians who feel, listen, go to the ministries, go to the departments, go to the agencies. These are citizens working there. They're not politicians. I'm not saying they're happy.
What are you saying?
They are committed to support the government to take us out of the challenges. What is leadership? Leadership is when you have yourself in a situation like this. You do not throw your hands in despair. Do not come and tell the citizens that if the electricity is off, they don't charge your phones. Do not come and tell the people that there are no jobs for you, go and weed and cut grass. Leadership is when you find yourself in such a situation, you say, listen, can we all come together? This is our blueprint. This is our solution. Can we come together so that we deliver? And that is what this government is meant to do.
No, you don't come in, sir. So, in 2016, we went to the polls in December. The comparison you make up to 2016, based on those benchmarks, that government was booted out of office. And you have admitted the debt portfolio has increased 3 times, if not 300% since that time. Going forward also, we're asking these questions based on current benchmarks. The union leaders are saying they're even not going to take 12 to 13% of those same individuals, or representing those same individuals, you say, are all not against government. And so it's not possible that majority of people may be happy. I'm not asking this question thinking that everybody is thinking government is looking bad. Certainly. If you look at the polls numbers from the last election, we have a lot of people who voted for the government. So that is it. But people are talking about their basic standards of living. And is that not why a good justification in questioning and raising concerns about why government, in putting together a financial statement, doesn't want to, if you look at what is out there on the street, to be asking itself that it wants to sacrifice, like the way it wants the citizens to sacrifice? Why not reduce the number of ministerial portfolios, for example, and then have a reflection and tell citizens that we feel that because we're sacrificing, you also should do the same? It looks like it's only the citizens who are making the sacrifice. Is that not it, Dadis?
So, Roland, I mean, I think you've even made a point for me.
I have not made any point.
No, you have. I mean, you have made a point for me. So that is why government has presented a budget to Parliament. Over the weekend, the MPs were, all of them, they were at a workshop discussing the budget. This budget is what's going to determine the fate of the state in the next 1 year. Now, the reason why anybody at all in making a point would always go back is because he would go back. He went back. Okay. And once you go back and you say that the government has been wasteful, the government has been this, I will look at who is coming from. Is it the Pope?
Well, presently, the government is not making the sacrifice, but wants citizens to make the sacrifices. Tell me what's in the budget that shows that government wants to make sacrifices.
Government has cut down the running of the Office of Government Machinery by almost about 55%. Go and look at goods and services. Has been cut by 55%. Go and read the budget. It has. You heard the finance
by
minister,
reducing the fuel coupons and things like that.
Why? That's not cut. It's not cut.
Is that extreme measure enough?
Not, but what is the
Have you been
measure?
listening to some of the big academics in the economics departments of the various universities, the IEA?
When you say cuts, what do you want? The number of people who are working to run the government should be 10 into 10, 20, 30. But when I say goods and services has been cut by 50%, you say it's not cut. What is cut?
Is that extreme by your indicators?
So what will be your extreme? Because the cost of running any organization, TV3, usually you'd realize that goods and services is even a lot more than salaries. Yes. Okay, because we are talking about...
So you do rationalization?
No, so that what? Because you are saying, so 50% of goods and services, which is the
You run a government machinery before, you're an MC, so I'm asking you.
No, that's what I'm trying to also get you to understand. That the government has cut down goods and services by 55%. Okay, as we speak, you heard the finance minister outline in the budget. Okay, several other measures that is being put in place to ensure that the cost of running government, because you see, immediately we speak about cost of running government, we target politicians. You think it's only politicians that are running government?
You assume that when they say reduce ministries and departments,
no, but
the assumption is that
yes,
it's only...
the
ministers are only figureheads.
Exactly. So why do you assume? No, I'm not saying ministers, I say politicians.
Are you saying that for all ministries, it's only politicians who are working?
No, but that's the assumption.
Mr. Dennis Mirakabo, is that what you're saying?
No, but that's the assumption that you create, that immediately...
What assumption did I create?
Okay, so when you say cut, what do you mean? Explain to us.
So, for example, you have how many ministers? Over 80. You reduce them to, let's say, 40.
So how much would that...
Then the four-wheel drives will stop. The other ones, you can find better jobs for them.
Help us. Do you know the total cost of all the Article 71? All of them, including me, the judges, including His Excellency John Mahama, including all the people on Article 71. Do you know the cost, their cost to everything we are discussing? Have you really done, or it's just a sentiment? Have you really picked the pen and paper to do the computation, or it's just a sentiment? I am saying that the cost of running the Office of Government Machinery. You asked me to give you an example of the government sacrificing, and I've told you that the cost of running Office of Government Machinery is being cut. Goods and services has been cut by 55%. I am telling you that as we speak, Article 71 holders, MMDCs, ministers, all those people that you assume, immediately you mention government, you assume, their salaries are being cut by 30%. Roland, I told you, I think I told you or Johnny here the last time, that last month, MMDCs went home with 500 Ghana cedis. 500 Ghana cedis. Okay? Now, their salaries are being cut hugely by 30%. If you take this 30% out, add their taxes that they have to pay, a lot of them, on the average every month, are going to go home with about 3,000 or 4,000 Ghana cedis. That is not sacrifice enough for you. So what? We should merge the number of districts we have so that we reduce the number of MMDCs we have. We should merge the constituencies we have.
What do you think?
No, but I don't know. You are telling me.
I don't know. I'm asking you because you present a budget.
Because I am telling you that in the budget, the finance minister and the government has outlined specific actions geared towards cutting down the expenditure. You are saying it's not enough. So I'm asking you, what is enough?
I'm asking you, is it enough? You're saying it's enough.
No, but you said it's not enough.
I didn't say it's not enough. I'm asking you a question, is it enough?
No, you said it's not extreme enough.
I'm saying, is it extreme enough? I'm
But
asking you.
why not? But
it's not my view.
Why not?
So I shouldn't
Why
ask
not?
questions.
No, but why not? It is. I think that the government is showing the way. The government is showing the way. You even heard the finance minister go on to not just leave it to the immediate, government machinery. He even said that state-owned enterprises, some cap is being placed on salaries and all of that. So yes, if you ask the specific question of what the government is doing to sacrifice or cut down expenditure, there is some evidence. But we can always discuss, Roland. We can always discuss the various views of what we think is enough. But we cannot downplay the effect of what it is that is being done. Come on, there are people in government that are taking home 3,000 Ghana cedis. I am telling you, their chief directors are taking 8,000, 9,000.
I'm not here to argue you about which salaries and things. I think that sometimes you get the question. I hope you're not fighting me on this. Or you are making.
Yes.
Okay.
You understand? There are people who are going home in government 3,000 Ghana cedis. Some are going home with 2,500 Ghana cedis. Even their chief directors and co earn more than them. So specifically in the budget, there is science and evidence and indications of what government is doing to cut down expenditure. But we can always discuss it and ask ourselves what is enough, and ask ourselves places that we can even do more or do less. But we should not assume or even make it a fixated conversation that until one specific action is done, then every other thing is a waste. That, I think, is quite problematic. And it's most unfair to even those who are actually helping us.
Yeah, most unfair, quite problematic. And
Look,
so, if the refrain has to be, and we have Isse, etc., raising questions, they have no basis.
Roland, you see, sometimes, I don't know when our people speak, whether they listen to themselves. Look, my brother seated
What do you
here,
mean by that?
My brother seated here is a presidential staffer with a task to deal with issues of local government and decentralization, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Are you telling me that there's no director at the Ministry of Local Government who can perform the same administrative tasks as he does?
But he's raising the question. Should the cat always be a political office holder who should be a victim?
But you see, you are talking about efficiency and downsizing. So if Roland, being an employee at a ministry, can do the work that Edwigi has been employed to do, why keep the two? Basic. But you see, my brother raises certain issue that I think is important that I set the record straight. He says that this government has expended $1 billion annually in order to keep the lights on. And when they say this, they say that they are paying excess capacity charges. That's barefaced lies. You've never paid $1 billion annually to keep our lights on.
Are you making references to the Suhini question?
Yes. And when Suhini asked the finance minister to provide the costs of the excess capacity expenditures, he said so far, from 2017 to June last year, they've only done $937 million. Not even $1 billion. How much more annually? So please stop parroting this lie. In any case, on our energy infrastructure, what has been the contribution of Akufo-Addo? Zero.
I think if I remember vividly, it was 85% before 2017. Now it's 88.
88 by what? What exactly has he introduced? Car power was brought by John Mahama. Ameri, John Mahama. AXA by John Mahama. Or he had expanded Akosombo Dam. Or Kpong. Or Bui Power.
Well, they renewed.
What has been the use of Akufo-Addo in our energy sector? Completely of no use. They've done what?
Renewal of Ameri.
How did they renew it?
Well, extension.
Please. Per the agreement, it was a BOOT. So it became the property of government of Ghana. He has no influence whatsoever about it. Car power.
It's still under their regime.
AXA. What has it done? Then you talk about keeping our lights on. But for the wisdom, the vision by Professor Mills, when John Mahama was the vice president, to invest $1 billion of the money we took from China, the CDB loan, in building our gas infrastructure where would we be today? That is what has saved this republic. And you dare talk about Akufo-Addo. When he got his money, he was flying jets. That is his scorecard. Look, you see, let the fact. And I recall Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia in the studios of Joy FM saying that John Mahama deserves no praise for solving Dumsor. And that, as a leader, that was his responsibility. Then today you turn around and say, we solved Dumsor. You have no respect for the intelligence of Ghanaians, right? What has been your contribution in? Look, when John Mahama's government signed on to the ENI contract, Nana Komia organized a press conference to attack the government then. 2, do you know that as we speak today, the payment within the energy sector are proceeds from ESLA, the Energy Sector Levies Act, passed by the John Mahama administration in 2015. How dare you talk about investment in energy? Do you know, do you have an appreciation? Do you know something? Let me even tell my brother today. Under the Energy Sector Levies Act, Section 5, it says that there shall be established an account known as the Energy Price Stabilization and Recovery Account. Under this law, the process is that in terms of crisis like now, government is supposed to use the proceeds from the price stabilization account to cushion Ghanaians. As we speak, you have expended the money. In fact, you have misapplied the money. Over 3 billion Ghana cedis has accrued under the account. You cannot account for it. And you know what? Anytime they talk, I had listened to the vice president the last time. He said they've spent 17 billion on excess capacity charge. And we called the vice president out that provide receipt of that expenditure.
Well, even the finance minister, when he appeared before the ad hoc committee was asked, yes.
We call him out. That provide...
He said he couldn't recall that he responded to Sohini.
Yes. So we told him that provide receipt. Do you know what they have done? When they came, we pay, you know, the various power plants, the tariffs are in dollar terms.
Yes.
And at the time they were negotiating, they negotiated the dollar, $1 to $3.5 Ghana cedis. Do you know what has happened today? The cedi had depreciated to almost 15%. Because of that, when the off-taker, which is ECG, buys the power from the independent power producers, they are unable to pass on. So ECG has accumulated debts because of the depreciation of the cedi. And that is the payment they have made, and they are calling it excess capacity. Why? You don't have technical people at your place?
What do you mean by that?
What I'm trying to say is that...
That's a very derogatory way to...
No. Because, you see, it's an industry-specific term.
Yes.
When you say excess capacity, you are basically...
So you're saying that by implication, because they couldn't manage the forex losses very well.
Exactly, but that has nothing to do with excess...
They shouldn't shift the blame.
Don't blame it on excess capacity. But you see...
No. I have Professor Gachi on the line.
Before him. Just 30 seconds. He makes the point that when they came, they had moved our public debt from 120 billion to almost 500 billion. The finance minister provided 467 as of September. They have accumulated more.
Your assumption is that it will go to 500?
No. As we speak, the depreciation of the cedi alone had added 98 billion Ghana cedis to our public debt. Whose responsibility is it to stabilize the cedi? Government. Your incompetence had brought 98 billion.
Eduji, the way you keep pointing, what have I done?
98 billion Ghana cedis on your district. How dare you talk about management?
Let's go to Professor John Gachi. Professor John Gachi is the Dean, the University of Cape Coast Business School. Now, good morning to you. There's an argument we're making about whether government's own cost-cutting measures and this one, if we make reference to the budget, and I'm making some references, they are reducing consumption of fuel by those who are appointees. There's also a directive to even heads of SOEs, and even those SOEs in themselves also making sure they reduce their expenditure. For example, if you have to undertake workshops, you do it in-house instead of going to big hotels, and you get functionaries getting allowances, etc. Per your experience, those sort of cost-cutting measures as announced in the 2023 budget, are they big enough to send a signal to the market that government is serious about reducing expenditure of the executive or government business generally?
Well, I don't think that is sending a strong signal to the market because they are items that may look very small and may not have a serious impact. Take, for example, the decision to stop the procurement of printing of diaries, for example. You realize that that is not the issue that is affecting the state. And if that were done together with some other deeper cuts, then that would have had an immense effect on the budget and have immense effect on the expectation of the market.
So, ideally, what should it have been in terms of those cost-cutting measures that would have sent big signals to the market, and not just only locally but also internationally?
I think you know the amount of money we are spending on cathedral. That should have been suspended.
On cathedral.
That should we should also have realigned expenditure in the flagship program. So that would have actually given a very clear signal to the market. Yeah. So long as we are not ready to do that, we are not sending any signal to the market.
The issue of the cathedral has always been a very thorny issue. And in relation to that, there seem to be some no-go areas for government. And we're talking about financing of free SHS and some of those policy initiatives that seem to take a chunk of money, one district, one factory, and some of those things. And because, for example, under one district, one factory, we give tax incentives, etc. Could they also have been perhaps better re-looked at in terms of their refinancing, and then a lot could have been brought into the government kitty by way of revenue?
I think there is a lot of mess in the financing of free SHS, procurement mess, food supply mess. All those things should have been corrected. If those things are corrected properly, that would have given a clear signal. The same thing applies to other important programs that we are running. There is a lot of mess in the procurement, and we have not heard anything to that effect, and that does not give encouragement to the market to react positively.
For those of you who tend to watch the market, and especially the government statement, does it give some hope or it raises concerns to the international market, especially at a time when we're negotiating with the IMF to get at least a staff-level agreement? And what could those implications be for us?
I think the market is looking at cumulative effects. If you look at the budget arrangement, that we are spending 52.6 billion on repayment of interest. In 2022, we were supposed to pay around 37, and that was increased to 44 billion. Then again, emolument, that compensation. So the same two items is consuming all our revenue. So to the market, nothing has changed. So we have to look at that properly and then communicate with the numbers. But the numbers are not speaking to the market. The market see all those things remain the same.
Wow. Okay, so my last question then to you is, if you look at the budget where we need an extra 61 billion, where are we going to get that from? How are we going to free the space in order to go to the market and borrow and finance that?
Well, I think the finance minister made a spectacular statement, and that it's going to be financed largely from discretionary borrowing. And we do know that discretionary borrowing is not available to us in such a large quantity. We get discretionary finance from IMF, from African Development Bank, from World Bank, etc. Now, I believe the intention of the finance minister is to see the IMF program go through perhaps at the first quarter of 2023. And when that happens, the IMF itself will bring some money. Then the World Bank will follow, African Development Bank will follow, and other development-oriented financial institutions will come in. Those are the areas that we get discretionary loans from. So I believe that statement alone is indicative of the fact that the IMF program is crucial to finance the deficit.
Wow. We're in difficulty. So my last question then will be, if you look at the announcement that we want to go and renegotiate with our bondholders externally to extend maturity periods or periods of maturation, and then even locally try to ask the bondholders to also do same, and giving assurances that their interests are not going to be affected. Is that a haircut or not?
That's definitely a haircut. You see, we need to, and a haircut is just about loss in value.
Yeah.
So if you extend the maturity period, you lose value. And this is how you look at it. You see, at your maturity today, you expect that when you get your return from your investment, you go to the market to buy cement, 90 Ghana cedis. But if that maturity is extended to about 2 years, and you get your return up about 2 years' time, and the price of cement is 100 Ghana cedis, you cannot buy the same amount of cement that you would have bought today if you were to be allowed to get all your returns. So no matter how you look at it, there is a loss of value, and that loss of value is what we are calling the haircut. So there's loss of value in terms of principal, that is through the elongation of the period, and there is a loss of value through the announcement that was made that bondholders will receive 0% interest in 2023 and perhaps 5% in 2024, and in that order up to 2026. So no matter how you look at it, there is a haircut that is going on. But the point that is disheartening is that government is the one that has borrowed, and government is the one that has covenanted with the people to repay. Government, without adequate discussion with the bondholders, has gone ahead to say that this is what I would do, and that is disrespect for investors, and that I do not know whether the investors will agree to that.
Professor Gachi, you're saying that it's possible the investors, especially the external investors or holders of our bonds, may not agree to it.
Why not? You have covenanted to pay at maturity the principal and interest, and all of a sudden you say that you are not going to pay. You have to agree with the people. You have to negotiate.
Yeah.
So if you don't negotiate, you can't come out and say that this is how much I will pay.
Right. Yeah, that's a difficulty. All right. Well, he's the Dean for the University of Cape Coast Business School, Professor John Gachi. And we also know that alongside his colleagues, headed by their unions, they're also looking at negotiating with government for better emolument. But it's where we have to go for a break. When we come back, we'll discuss the issue of haircuts and whether Ghana's efforts in exchanging gold for oil is possible and how that is going to be undertaken. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.